What's up, guys? It's your host Spartanic Arts DxD back with another high school DxD related video. And today we have What If Issei Was Abandoned Part 22. Let's try to hit 1,000 likes once again, and thank you so much for all the people that have been joining Balance Breaker and Limit Breaker once again. We have officially hit 60 members. I know I mentioned that last time, but that's just absolutely crazy to me. I can't believe we hit 30k, 60 members, all that crazy stuff that's been happening. 10,000 on my second channel, bro. I've been going crazy. Thank you so much for the support, man. If you guys want to know exactly when I upload / my upload schedule, click the little blue button right next to the subscribe button. What If Issei Was Neglected and Became OP Part 1 will be out very shortly after this series. So basically, as soon as this ends, which is probably about 2 more videos, boom, gone. Which counting this one. So this one and then the next one, that'll probably have 2 more videos, and then this series will end. And I'll make it a movie for anybody who's wondering. But yes, thank you so much for the support. And go ahead and subscribe to my Ampopowski and Fallen DxD. Fallen DxD, I'll be reviewing anime and playing games. And then Ampopowski, I will be doing shorts and things like that to communicate with my audience. So thank you so much for the support. And without further ado, let's go ahead and thank my Balance Breakers. Rob the King, Lachlan Yates, Atomic Warlord 58, Seth Foyles, Ant Lewis, The Beast YT3, Colex, Joe Baldwin, Russell Getchell Jr., Madara Uchiha, Refik135, Keep Saying 21, Blue Lightning, Senrar Q, XDataPat Gaming, Vera with #2347, Sanitate, Steven Cruz, ZKey2000, The J-Boys, The PS Gamer, XOR X108, Mr. Wolf, Jordan Patchow, Mazaku, Dr_MLG_ is the bomb, Asimodus, Grimfireshot Gamer, That Round Guy, Zero Fusion, Source Spawner, NickMay98, God Said Why, and Chaotic Raven. Thank you so much for becoming a Balance Breaker. Without any further intrusion, let's go ahead and get into part 22. We are basically right in the middle of chapter 10. I want to show them, he pointed at Erika and Fuki, how big the world is. I want them to experience many things and feel what it is to live. I want to help people so they not to experience what I did. His words made the woman blush. They never thought they were so important to him. This made them feel happy, coming from Issei, and very delighted. Issei never removed his eyes from the gods. Shiva saw that his will never wavered. This caused him to discreetly feel satisfaction. I want for the people I care for to live and experience credible things. I also want to be at their side and help them. I want them and myself to live a long, beautiful life with lovers and friends, he said to the god with emotion in his voice. His voice was confident, and his tone filled with desire to accomplish his goals. Then he discreetly turned his head and looked at Fuki and Erika. Inevitably, he released a sigh. I want a family of my own. He mumbled the last one in an extremely low voice, but Shiva read his lips. He smirked even before. His expectations about him just kept increasing. Issei stopped those thoughts and calmed himself. He remembered his past life, those days, those great moments he once experienced, the laughs, the joy, and everything else. Everything turned out to be a dream of golden millet, a pipe dream, a beautiful illusion that turned into a nightmare. He thought about the results of that, the repercussions he experienced, so he made his resolve, the resolve to be different and be better. I won't let my life be ruled by others just because of convenience. I won't let the hate and pain I experienced, control me. I will be better. I will change, and I will become the strongest heavenly dragon this world has to offer. His darkness moved in accordance to his emotions. Shiva mentally smiled. He knew that his eyes weren't wrong. Even his wife agreed to his decision after meeting him. The women were happy. They knew that their hearts were with the correct man. Never have they doubted. Now they knew what he wanted. But that comment from the god kept them thinking. What ritual, Erika thought. As she looked at Issei, she felt as this was the mystery they had been anxious to figure out. Ritual. For him to act like that, it definitely isn't something good, Fuki thought with a hand on her chin. After saying all of what we wanted to do, silence resigned for some time. During this time, his eyes never left Shiva's. He sensed that the god was reading him, but he didn't understand why. I see. Those were his only words, but his tone seemed happy. So you wish to protect. How interesting. A dragon that wants to protect. Shiva smiled at this. Everyone else was confused about what he was talking about, but Issei inside his head agreed with his opinion. Standing up, Shiva pointed at Issei and said, if that's what you want, then I'll have you meet someone. Putting his hands behind his back, Shiva walked towards the main door of the garden. All of them understood that he wanted them to follow him, so they looked at each other, nodded their heads, and started to follow him. No one talked for the duration of the trip. Shiva took the inside Mount Kailash and just kept walking inside the entire mansion, at the top of the mountain. After what it felt like hours, they reached somewhere. A big stone door was in front of them. It covered the whole wall, and nothing aside of it was nearby. Shiva stopped walking and then turned around to look at him. This is the training room of my territory. Although it's not much, we do frequently use it. He smiled at them and pushed the door. The inside was absurd. No end could be seen inside the room. It just extended until the eyes lost focus. It was a huge plain of rocks and dirt. Some weird objects could be seen in random locations of that place, but they didn't know what they were for. Shiva walked inside. As he closed the door, he began talking to them, more specifically to Issei. "I'll have you meet someone special," he smirked at his own words. Clang, clang. The sound of metal colliding against metal was heard inside the training space. Issei found this intriguing. That and the aura he could feel all the way here. He thought that this was interesting. As they walked closer, they finally saw the figure responsible for all those noises, as well as the aura they sensed some time ago. A woman? He thought, as he couldn't really distinguish her silhouette because it moved too fast. The silhouette seemed to be the incarnation of lightning itself. The speed it possessed was second to none. It was fighting against multiple opponents, all dressed in armor. The armor itself was similar to gold, but it gave the appearance of being made out of cloth. However, every time the lightning landed a blow on the echo of metal was heard, so it definitely made out of an alloy. Issei was interested in the armor. He felt like an armor that should be extremely useful. Shiva just stood there, looking up at the lightning, and back at Issei. An indistinguishable smile was on his face. After some seconds, all of the golden figures fell to their knees. Grunts of pain came out of their mouths. At the same time, the lightning finally stopped moving. She had her back pointed at them, and some sparks still covered her entire body. Shiva looked at her, and his eyes softened. "Yay. I want you to meet someone." His hands were on his back and a smile on his face. The woman turned her head over her shoulder. Her eyes were focused on the battle, softened, and a smile spread across her face. Turning her whole body around, she began walking towards them, a smile plastered on her face. Issei was amazed by the beauty of the woman. Wow, who exactly is she? She was an attractive young woman that seemed to be in her late teens, with long blue hair similar to night sky, and a pair of beautiful sparkling eyes with a gaze as soft as water, not containing even the slightest hint of arrogance. Her face was exquisite and delicate, with skin smooth as silk and white as milk. All of her body admitted an air of sensuality, but an air of purity. Her chest was constricted by her clothing, giving off a ridiculous amount of sex appeal. Her rear was the same, covered by a short skirt that left little to imagine. She was more or less tall in height. She was 5 feet 5 inches, around 171 centimeters. Pretty tall for a woman, but nowhere near Erika and Fuki that were almost as tall as Issei. She wore black collar, with white frills and a tinge of blue on it, a black, double-breasted armor thigh-length vest that covered her whole upper body, protecting her chest, her sides, and part of her hips and thighs. She had a red miniskirt that barely reached her thighs, along with plaits at the sides. She wore black stockings that supported by garters, red boots with metal heels, and black metallic bracelets on her wrist. Wait, did I see wrong? Issei thought his eyesight went bad. He could have sworn that he saw a pair of bunny ears above her head. Looking again, he indeed saw a pair of bunny ears above her head, moving slightly as she walked away. Huh? This took him by surprise. As she walked closer, Issei just stared at her. The women at his side were annoyed by the look of awe he gave her. Erika hit him with the elbow, and Fuki punched his arm. Issei was abruptly awakened from his daydreaming. Looking at his sides, the two women refused to make eye contact. Was their only answer. What'd I do? He was confused. Drake, on the other hand, was doing his very best not to laugh at the sight. He knew that the two women were jealous of the one in front of them. After all, his partner just stared at her without blinking. "Father!" Her sweet, melodious voice was heard. It was beautiful as a song and as soft as it could get. "Yay, please, at least spar some of our guards. They are barely standing," Shiva said, while giving her a soft look, completely different from the god of destruction. "Sorry, father, but I needed to train, and both of my brothers are out, so I could only ask them." The woman blushed lightly. "I want you to meet someone," Shiva said as he pointed at Issei. The beauty turned her head around and looked at Issei. Issei saw curiosity in those eyes, but he also saw a sense of caution. The woman named Ye was definitely contrasting with her appearance on guard. By the looks of her magical reserve nerves alone. She should be quite the enemy, but that speed, that should be a problem. However, something feels off about this. He kept staring at her. Soon he saw her eyes once again, this time focusing more on them. Her eyes. They have a lot of pain hidden inside them. Don't tell me she's... Issei thought as he kept eye contact. He was shocked by this, but he could be wrong. Meanwhile, the two women looked at her and felt a sense of competition. She was by no means inferior to them in beauty, and their instincts as women flared up the moment Issei saw her with those eyes. But something caught their attention. Their eyes never left the pair of bunny ears on top of her head, moving softly. Are they real? Erica thought while looking at them. Fuki thought the same. At the same moment, the woman noticed the eyes of the two women. She felt a bit confused as they were looking at her ears. Excuse me, but what's wrong? Her voice was soft, her tone a bit worried. Issei then looked at Shiva, who was motioning with his hand to come closer. He did as told, and two of them walked a bit far off from them, leaving the women to do whatever they wanted. As you heard, she's my daughter. Her name is Ye Ruta. Her race is rather special, as you can see, he told him, while sitting on top of a rock nearby, matching Issei's height. Yes, I guessed at the moment I saw her ears, but what is she? She's not a yokai, and I've never heard of a Hindu rabbit, Issei replied back to him. Shiva just sighed at that. The story is rather long. If you want to know, then come to the garden at night. I'll tell you everything. Issei was curious why Shiva was doing this, but he still nodded his head. Back with the two women, the two of them were having a silent stare down with Ye. Their eyes never left the figure for even a second. Ye, on the other hand, was feeling restless. These looks the two women gave her were especially weird, as if something took they loved and cherished and were now pissed. I don't know why you're looking at me like that, but I'm sure all of this could be solved easily, she smiled, a bit on her own. Erica and Fuki didn't hear her words. They were just silent. Excuse... She was frozen solid by the actions of the white-haired woman. Erica extended her hand and grabbed her bunny ear. Fuga, Ye was baffled by the sudden action. She screamed as she felt her own ear being pulled. Why did you have to pull Ye's lovely ears? What do you expect to wish to accomplish by pulling Ye's beautiful rabbit ears? Ye screamed, while looking kind of cute. Oh, so they are real, was the only response from Erica. She ignored the pitiful rabbit's question. Of course they are. Why did you think Ye's ears were fake? And don't ignore my question. She was confused and a bit angry. Oh, these rabbit ears are actually real? Fuki said, as she went for another ear of Ye. Wait a moment. Ye tried to stop her, but it didn't work. While the two women grabbed her ears, Ye made an Israeli scream that made Shiva giggle at the sight of the two women teasing his daughter. Issei saw that and facepalmed. He decided to intervene before things escalated even more. While walking close to them, Issei grabbed the hands of both Fuki and Erica. Erica, Fuki, stop this. Why were you doing that in the first place? Please don't mess with her like that. Issei ordered the two women, being serious about it. Sating my curiosity, was Erica's response. Curious, the answer from Fuki was even worse. Issei sighed and looked at the woman who was on the ground and had small tears in her eyes. He inclined down and stretched his hand at her, wishing to help her stand up. Are you okay? They didn't mean wrong. They just act like that with anything that interests them. His voice was warm and sharp, making the rabbit widen her eyes. In her eyes, the man in front of her that helped and stopped the two women's teasing was quite handsome. He had black hair and red eyes that were kind of sharp but held an extremely comfortable feeling to her. All of that made her blush a lot. Thank you, she stuttered, while grabbing his hand. Not making eye contact, definitely love at first sight. Issei just smiled at this. The woman seemed to be quite good company to be around. However, the two women at his sides were feeling something. Defending her like that, Erica thought. This rabbit is trying to steal my Issei in your dreams. Fuki was feeling threatened. While patting the dust off her clothes, Ye looked at the man in front of her. While giving a gentle smile and spinning her body around in joy, she said, although father said who I am, let me introduce myself. She moved a hand on top of her chest and bowed. My name is Ye Ruta, daughter of Shiva. Her voice held pride and her smile was stunning. The artificial light that was shown on her body made Issei widen his eyes just a bit. The change's expression didn't go unnoticed by Erica and Fuki. Both of them could see and every change in Issei's expression. Thanks to that, they could guess what he was thinking. Oh, he muttered, slightly impressed by the sight. His words caused Ye's face to turn a bit red. Then I should also introduce myself. And my team, he decided. While standing straight, pride filled his body. His eyes held light that was incomprehensible. My name is Issei. Issei Hyodo. These words caused Ye to freeze. Even her ears were standing up straight. He smirked at the response. I'm a full dragon and the wielder of the Longinus boosted gear. His words were ridiculous for her. Flash. A brilliant flash of green light blinded people momentarily. After the light was gone, Ye saw the Longinus that was supposed to be with the war hero right on his left arm. You're really him? She muttered while looking amazed. Indeed, due to certain accident, I became a full dragon. Issei told her half of the whole truth, trying to start right with her. But she mumbled while pointing at him. It was quite funny. Even her ears was standing straight. It's the truth, Ye. Shiva said as he appeared out of nowhere. It's a very, very well-kept secret, but the current Red Dragon Emperor is a full dragon, he said to clear her doubts. How? She saw the current Sekiru was human, a pure human that was reincarnated as a devil, but in front of her was a dragon, and the whole sense of the word. She knew her senses couldn't be wrong, but he was so different. His attitude, his complexion, his eyes and face, it was different person, but both the Longinus in his arm and her father proved to her that the current Sekiru, it was him. If he wants to talk, then let him talk. It's his own secret after all. Shiva shrugged his shoulders. I don't mind. Nothing wrong with it. Issei shrugged his shoulders. Ye kept her eyes on him. Both of her hands were close to her chest, and her eyes held a curious gleam that made Issei smirk for a second. She leaned forward and closed the distance between them. Her eyes never left his, but that action caused him to stare at her chest for the briefest of seconds. Further angering the woman at the side, she leaned forward and closed the distance between them. Issei quickly composed himself and acted as if he did nothing wrong. It happened. After my battle against the blood descendant of the original Beelzebub, inside a pocket dimension made of the dimension lost, he began his explanation. Right when he used his last trump card, an arrow covered with blood of Samil, I was struck by it, and due to me holding the boosted gear, the damage it did was ridiculous. His words caught the attention of the women at his sides. They have never heard the full story, just the end result. After that, I was dying. My body became useless, and I, sooner or later, would have died inside the dimensional gap. He crossed his arms and closed his eyes. At my dying breath, Great Red broke through the dimension I was trapped in, and Orpheus, that was with me, decided to hop on his back alongside with me. He moved his single hand to the side. My body became useless, but Treg managed to cage my soul inside the boosted gear. Meanwhile, Orpheus and Great Red made a body out of their own. The blood and flesh from Great Red and the power and aura of Orpheus. He smirked at that. The rest were quiet. Even Shiva put a slight attention on this. Even he didn't know the complete story. After a couple of days, I woke up from my coma, he quoted his last words, and thanks to Dreg, Orpheus, and Great Red, I was successfully fused my soul into my body, he said. So I gained the body of a full dragon, and my soul that has the boosted gear was able to stabilize inside the new body. Thus, I became a full dragon while possessing a Longinus. He dismissed his own comment. Ye had her eyes widened like dinner plates. Even her mouth was so open that it could fit a whole egg inside of it. Never in her life she expected to meet someone that is so ridiculous. She was stopped mid-speech by Erica. He's basically a joke. A slip of fate. It was someone slept during their work, and this happened. Her words were right in this sense. Issei gave a small glare to her, who in return gave him a prideful smirk. That's what you get. She was happy about it. Ooh, so it's like that. Indeed, it's much easier to understand it like that. He just cutely nodded in her head. Her voice was soft and made Issei cringe. He faked a cough and decided to keep explaining. And these two, he pointed at the women, are my friends and teammates. Erica Dracula, last descendant of Dracula himself and a royal vampire. He pointed at the white-haired woman, who smirked as she placed a hand on her hip, showing off her astounding body, heart-stopping sexual appeal. And Benny Kamuchi Fuki, strongest yokai and the last descendant of Tamio no Mei. Fuki smiled at his words and blushed a bit. Her beauty was second to no one at the moment. Last descendants. Ye looked at both women, her mind in a mess. A miracle. She looked at Issei and the two women once again. A feeling of understanding and happiness grew in her chest. That's basically it, he finished explaining. Shiva was quiet, and so was Ye. Issei was exhausted after all of this. Even the talk right now was quite long. Shiva, is there a library here? He asked while looking at the god. Indeed. Are you interested in something? Shiva asked back. He nodded his head. There's something I need to search for. The sooner the better. Ye, can you take you there? She knows the way. Shiva told him as Ye smiled at this. Oh, Then I'll trouble you. He looked at Ye and smirked a bit. That's not a problem at all. I often go there after training. She waved her back and forth, hiding her embarrassment. Oh, then what do you read? He asked, interested in this. Erika didn't like reading as much as him, and Fuki, well, she's a lost cause in an ambit. Pretty much everything. You name it, we have it. Her smile made Issei release a brief laugh and nod his head in agreement. Then, do you have any books about alchemy? About treasures of heavens and earth? He asked cautiously. There are indeed. Ye clapped her hands in front of her chest and closed her eyes. Would you like me to help you find them? She asked, while placing her hands behind her back, squirming in place. Oh, then I'll ask you from you. Issei closed his eyes, nodded his head, and began walking. Before walking past Ye, he discreetly looked at Erika. She responded with a nod of her head. Their thoughts, I have something important to do. I'll leave first. And, understood, be cautious. Issei smirked and placed his hands in the coat pockets. He walked away, Ye at his side. His mind kept running. His thoughts were as well. Maybe I can. He always was scheming something. Shiva looked a bit intrigued by the sudden communication between the dragon and the vampire, but decided to ignore it. Just by his question alone, it made him understand what the dragon wanted to do. That gleam inside his eyes when seeing his daughter proved to him something else. He smiled at the thought. Erika and Fuki looked at each other a bit confused. Issei wasn't exactly like this. What is he thinking? Why the sudden interest in those books? Why is he so relaxed? When? He is so cautious. They had so many questions, but decided to ignore them. As long as it wasn't something bad, they didn't care. Soon after, they decided to leave. Erika went to another location inside the training field, and Fuki decided to go back to sleep. Scene changed, Library of Mount Kalash. The library inside the mountain was ridiculous. Issei was genuinely amazed at the moment. Ye opened the door to it. It was huge, to say the least. The ceiling had many decorations and drawings, all depicting a battle or an event. Chandeliers hung from the ceiling, all having many candles and bringing light to the library. The color all over the place was golden with a bit of red. The floor was made of dark wood that was shining with light and candles on top, and the bookcases were as tall as the ceiling. They were many bookcases, all lined up in vertical way until nothing could be seen in the distance. At the sides of them, there were some torches and old antique ladders rested against the sides of the bookcases, maybe to reach the higher parts of them. Ye walked in front of Issei and turned around. She didn't seem affected by the beauty of this place. Welcome to the library, she opened her arms and said in an exaggerated manner. Then she turned her whole body around, giving him her back. And here, all the knowledge of my pantheon has to offer is stored. Every book since the beginning of the Hindu pantheon was personally collected, placed here by my father, Shiva. The many books this place had stored are hundreds of thousands. The exact quantity is unknown, and all of them are utterly unique, so there's no copies here. She seemed to like to explain things. She was also very good at it, like a natural talent she had, to be a bitra or something around those lines. Fun, fun, she smiled triumphantly, while both of her hands were on her hips. Did I amaze him? I hope I did, she thought, while fidgeting in her spot, but she didn't hear a single voice, nor noise, nor something at all. Aura? She said as she turned around. Nothing was behind her. She blinked. Her eyes tilted beside her head. Huh? She said. Oh, so there's this type of book here. She heard a voice to her left. Issei was looking at a book that he never expected to see. A romance novel, and a smutty one at that. Quite interesting, he said, and he expertly flipped the pages of the book. Why are you there? You missed Ye's amazing explanation about this place, she yelled at him, while practically appearing at his side. He was curious. Well, you were taking your sweet time, so I just walked towards a bookcase and grabbed a book while you were done, he deadpanned. Ye blinked, her eyes in confusion. Huh? She sighed in defeat. She crossed her arms and closed her eyes, then said, Please listen to what I'm saying. It's important for you to understand the history behind this place, as you are our guest, and we need to show you the courtesy of Mount Kalash, and that includes the history behind this place. With this, she thought that he would understand. Was I too serious? Did I say too much? Oh, I hope he's not mad. I would hate if he's angry at me, but her thoughts were fast as lightning. Opening her eyes, she was about to mutter an apology, only to meet with absolutely nothing again. Huh? Question marks appeared above her head. She looked cute with her confused expression. Oh, yay. Come here. I really don't know where to find books I'm looking for. Issei was further away. He had another book in his hand, and this one also seemed to be another novel. Please listen to what Ye's talking, Ye yelled, causing Issei to giggle slightly. So, where are the alchemy books? He said, just again to tease her. Ye sighed in complete defeat and slumped her shoulders. I'm going. She seemed to be defeated by the antics of Issei. Ha! Her reactions are priceless. He knew his plan worked. Oh, thanks again, Ye. He decided to smile a bit, maybe as an apology. Ye was walking with her shrunken shoulders when she heard his voice again. At least he's nice with her. Thoughts stopped as she looked at him. Issei's smile caused her to blush a bit, but his slightly gentle eyes and the book in his hand accumulated in her eyes his handsome face a lot more. There's no need to thank me. She covered her face and her hair and her ears. She even fidgeted in spot. Issei was a bit confused by this and just ignored it. Ye finally walked closer to him, her eyes still a bit misty. Focus, Ye. She hit her cheeks with her hands. You know that he's handsome, but focus. He asked your help for something and father is counting on you. Do not let this handsome face and even handsomer smirk and those extremely comforting eyes and that sweet voice and she was lost in thought again. Issei saw how she hit her cheeks, and then a hint of determination filled her eyes. Only after that did her eyes turn dreamy and misty. She was completely lost in thought. Is she okay? He asked inside his head. Ha! You truly have a gift, partner. Ha! He heard Drake's voice, and a laugh. Do you know what happened to her, Drake? He asked back. Oh, maybe I do, but I won't say. Drake was having a blast. Huh? What's wrong with you? His only answer was his laugh, but he decided to cut the link between them and focus on Ye. Ye? He asked while looking at her, but it didn't seem to work. Ye, are you okay? He placed his hand on her shoulder. That seemed to wake her up. She shook her head in a bit and then looked at the one who woke her up. Oh, Issei-san, as she said. She widened her eyes in shock. He saw me like that? Oh no. What if he thinks I'm... Her thoughts were stopped. Ye, are you seriously fine? If you don't feel well, I could stay here on my own. He crossed his arms while asked. His warm but sharp voice that seemed to have a bit of worry caused Ye to cough. So, as to get rid of her thoughts and blush, do not worry, Issei-san. I'm okay, just a bit tired from training, she smiled, while waving her hands side to side. Oh, I understand, he agreed to her words and turned around, walking towards a random direction. Whew, safe, she thought, while breathing a bit of air in to calm her heart down. After that, she walked towards Issei and helped him find the books he was looking for. After finding the books Issei was looking for, Ye decided to stay with him. She thought that he might help, and well, she would love to help. Soon her thoughts were proven right. Ye, can you explain this to me? I don't quite get it. Issei had an extremely thick book with green cover in his hand, the title as Differences in Stimulants Between Herbs. He walked closer to Ye while looking at the page he was in. She was sitting at one side of him, another book on her desk, while the light of a candle helped her read better. Sure, Issei-san. Her eyes basically shined when he asked this. Fun. I can show you how much I know, she hid her smile. Since I was a child, I spent a lot of time here, so any question you have is easy to me. She was happy about proving her knowledge to Issei. Issei walked closer and leaned over his shoulder, putting his book on top of hers. Here, the difference between fish-scaled grass and dragon-scaled grass, he was curious about this. He couldn't quite understand it. Ye blushed as she felt Issei's arm on her shoulder. His face is extremely close to her. Close, far too close. Please, stay a bit away. My heart can't take it. Her thumping heart was clearly heard by her ears. Nevertheless, she still replied while hiding the thump in her chest. Fish-scaled grass is a small herb the size of a hand. It leaves the size of a fingernail and have small white dots of them, she explained while doing her very best. It mainly used by alchemists due to its warm nature and healing properties. However, dragon-scaled grass is different. She seemed like a teacher. Dragon-scaled grass is also very similar to fish-scaled grass, but it leaves the size of a soybean and it only has one white spot on each of the leaves, she said. It's also cold in nature, so if you break the stem off, a yellow liquid should come out. That liquid is used as a stabilizer during the refinement of medicine, she finished explaining. I see, were the words of Issei. He was quite tired and spent a lot of time in here with Ye, so something basic like this just slipped his mind. Must be getting tired, he concluded. Thanks, Ye, for everything. He turned his head around and thanked her with sincerity. No problem, she smiled. Her ears were even more excitingly. Then I'll take my leave. I'm a bit tired and want to rest if possible, he said as he walked towards where he thought was the exit was. He was a bit shocked by his words. To be honest with herself, she really liked being with him. Although he teased her quite a bit, he was extremely nice. His eyes also were extremely comforting to her, as if he experienced something that she could completely understand. Issei-san, she thought, as she looked at his back. Then she decided, gathering the courage, and said, she yelled at him, Issei-san! He turned around. Was his response. If it's fine with you, would you like to meet me again here tomorrow? She said. The last part extremely quick. Issei was confused by this. Seeing her fidgeting in her spot caused him to agree. Sure, Ye. Same hour. He turned around and once again, finally leaving the place. Ye was happy at this. Seeing his walk, she lifted a hand on top of her body and said, "Yes." Her smile was obvious. After that, she placed both of her hands on her body, grabbing her fingers and playing with them. Her face was tad red, and her ears were as well. I did it, she smiled. He will come tomorrow. This definitely will be good, she thought. He wouldn't think I'm too daring, right? I mean, I know it's too fast, but I wanted to keep talking with him and all. Her thoughts kept spinning. I mean, I haven't been with any other male, aside from my father and brothers. He's going to be the first. Then a sudden possibility came into her head. Isn't this a date? A man and a woman alone together? It's definitely a date. Oh no. He won't think I'm bold, right? I swear it's not like that, Issei-san. I'm not thinking this date or anything. I mean, it's not like I don't think you're attractive, rather completely opposite. You're extremely handsome, and her thoughts just kept going all the way in that direction. Soon, inside the library, there was a bunny, but extremely red face. Both of her hands covered her face, and she kept hoping one side to another. Scene change, Mount Kalash, Issei's room, later that night. Issei was laying down on his bed, watching the sun set in the horizon through the window inside his room. Such an amount of information, it's not going to be easy. At least Ye helped me by finding the most important books, he thought, while turning his head around. The rabbit was extremely nice, and they shared much knowledge about each other, mainly Ye talking and asking him some random things, and Issei answering. She even asked about his adventures. He smirked at her questions, making some red appear on her cheeks, and talked about some of them. Those purity in those eyes, and the lack of hidden interest in her questions made him a tad bit more talkative than before. After some long hours spent inside the library, Issei finally decided to leave. He saw a sad light in the side of the A's that quickly vanished, but that was enough for him. Maybe his plan was not that far-fetched after all. Inside his room, Erika and Fuki were with him. One bed sleeping like a log right next to him, and the other in the desk other side of the wall, reading something. While looking at the ceiling, Issei was in thought. A treasure so rare that it can help a dragon. His mind kept spinning. He didn't know what was going to happen. Well, for now, let's not worry about this. He decided to move on. Tilting his head to the left, he noticed that nighttime already arrived. Well, time to go. He remembered Shiva's words. He stood up from the bed, stretched his numb body, and began walking towards the door, waking Fuki up during the process and making Erika glance at him curiously. While turning the knob, he said to the residents while turning his head, "Shiva said he wanted to meet me during the night at the garden. I'll be back soon. If I'm not, then leave as soon as you can." He was cautious as always. The women widened their eyes in surprise and still nodded their heads. Internally, they still refused his order. If things did go wrong, they will fight with him and die with him. Issei knew about this, so he wanted to do the best he could do so that nothing goes wrong. Opening the door of the room, he left. After walking around the mansion, Issei managed to arrive at the garden. The entire place was pitch black. Only the light and of a few torches placed all over the garden and a few fireflies were the only things that brought light to this garden. As he began walking, he decided to go towards the Bodhi tree. Then the lake that was once a clear, tranquil blue turned black. It looked like an abyss ready to swallow you up. Underneath the Bodhi tree was a young boy. He was looking at a firefly that was resting on top of his index finger. The light in his eyes held absolute power and wisdom even Issei wanted to have. Soon, the little firefly flew away from the finger of the god and he turned around. "So you came," Shiva said, looking at the young dragon. "Yes, now why are we here?" He went direct and for the point. "You should know, right?" Shiva replied in a mysterious tone. "I have my suspicions," Issei said, while crossing his arms and walking even closer to the Bodhi tree. He was a meter away from Shiva. "Oh, then surprise me, dragon," Shiva basically ordered the dragon. "It's about Ye's past, right? About your daughter's experiences in her life," Issei replied without any kind of fear. "Ooh," he muttered, impressed. "Indeed, Sekiro, it's about my daughter," Shiva gave him the reason. Shiva pitted out the ground at his side. Issei raised a brow to this, but then shrugged his shoulders. He sat down next to Shiva and looked directly at the river. "You see, Issei, my daughter has a special existence," he explained. "A genius among her own kind, but also the very last of them." Shiva never looked at Issei. He stared at the lake. She is not my blood daughter, rather my adopted daughter. However, I love her even more than my own flesh and blood, he smiled. Her story, she doesn't mind me telling you, Shiva said, while turning his head around. Issei stayed silent. His eyes were closed. Seeing this, Shiva took his silence as approval. Ye is the last of the moon rabbits. Shiva looked at the star-filled sky and began narrating. Issei was confused. He felt that he heard about that before, but he couldn't quite remember. The moon rabbits were famously known, thanks to this certain legend based on selflessness. Thanks to that soul act of sacrifice, they were given the greatest by honors by Indra. This surprised Issei a bit. He made the entire tribe his phenomenal guards. Although they were not famous, they were respected among our pantheon. And, thanks to their great merits, Indra adopted them and gifted them with many treasures. His voice sounded metallic. He gave the strongest warrior of the tribe the greatest power, power comparable to one of his own, Heavenly's general, if not more. He gave them a replica of his own weapon, forged by Brahma himself, he said while lying down in the grass. His Vajra, his lightning, was why they were most famous for. They even called themselves the lightning of Indra, and no one dared to refute it. However, everything good has its ending. This comment made Issei stare at him. Shiva had a really old look in his eyes, as if recalling memories he'd rather not remember. The Great War was not only fought amongst the three biblical factions, everyone in the supernatural world was involved. These words shook Issei to the core. He had never heard about that. He thought that the war was only between Christianity and not a free-for-all. It began only for the sake of pride and power, thinking by eradicating all of the rest of the pantheons they would stand supreme, alone in the world, yours to rule over with an iron fist, he exclaimed. But things were terrible. Not only did the war become even more gruesome, it changed the gods, some for good, as they learned the value of life in others, many others for evil, as they were infuriated with it. He had sadness in his voice. Indra was one of those cases, he confessed. He became twisted and became obsessing with the war, thriving for victory, always victory, even if it meant death of his subordinates and friends. He had a bitter tone of voice. Of course, the moon rabbits followed him due to their loyalty and courage, but after many years of senseless war, they became less and less in number. He sounded exhausted. The chief at the time saw this and tried to talk to his master to retreat from the war, to stop this endless slaughter, but Indra never listened. He was disappointed. Desperate, the chief planned to rebel, but the rest of his tribe was so lost in the war that they kept thinking about getting revenge for their parents, brothers, or lovers, so no one listened to him. None except for one. He smiled a bit at this. Issei was completely silent. He didn't want to interrupt them. The sole person was a woman. She was courageous and strong. She was the strongest user of lightning in the whole tribe. Blessed by her natural talent, she was also known as the incarnation of lightning. Shiva lifted the corner of his mouth. But even with all of the fame and power, she didn't care. Her only wish was for the war to stop. And save as many others as her tribe as she could. So she followed the man. He smirked. She didn't think twice about following him, since their goals were the same. She didn't even care about what would happen if Indra discovered that they were planning on rebelling. She just wished for freedom and peace, so she fought for that. Issei was silent, only paying attention. Her bravery and character managed to steal the heart of the leader. The same could be said to what happened to her. Slowly, they began to fall in love, spending more and more time with each other. After some time, they forged out their plan, hoping to live together forever in peace. But things became even tenser. He was saddened by this. The fall of the Persian pantheon at our hands made all of the other participants in war exceeded. Indra was one of the most pleased. Seeing this, the couple decided to wait a bit more. It wasn't the time, but unknown to them, the rest of their tribe always kept an eye on them, thinking about what their words that their leader, he quoted the last word once said to them, and sooner or later, their plan was found out. Issei widened his eyes a bit. At the moment, Indra was furious. He clutched his fists in anger. Blinded by his anger, he went for the lives of both of them, but the man decided to sacrifice his own life for the sake of his lover, and the honor their own legend. He had a sad smile. When Indra arrived, he flipped the entire town over until he was found. The man was accused of many crimes, some of which he didn't even commit, but no one cared about that, he sighed. The man's only wish, his last wish, was for his lover to be safe. Issei was surprised. He knew that the man must really have loved the woman if he was willing to go that far for her. And so he was sentenced to death, but his lover was spared, exiled from the tribe, but alive. This thanks to his many merits during his life as a warrior. Shiva looked at the Sikaru and found him paying attention all he could. His lover pleaded and cried just for one night to talk to him. Their last night together, she begged and bade until Indra agreed. That night, the man and the woman became one, and unknown to them, they made the full family that they wished. He smiled at this. Then the man told his lover to run away as far as possible, and gifted her the most precious armor in the entire pantheon, a relic used by every chief on tribe since the immemorial. An armor that Indra got due to trickery, and due to a vow that one that had it decided to fulfill. It was a gift from Indra himself to his own father, the former chief, since Indra couldn't use it due to his curse towards him. Issei was silent. This story was quite sad, a romance that couldn't be fulfilled due to a ridiculous war, and the man betrayed by his own kind because of wishing the best for them. The day of the execution, the woman saw his loved one walk his head high, going towards his death. He was satisfied since he was successful in protecting his love, but tragedy occurred. His voice was bitter. During his execution, news about Indra and his general they were spread, and the last of the extinct Persian pantheon came claim of all the lives of all. The evil dragon, Azidaka, came and used his entire power to kill anything in his eyes. This surprised Issei. The battle made the heavens quake and the earth to crack. All lost by the power of that dragon. Indra had to slaughter his way out, eliminating the dead army the dragon conjured. Many of Indra's generals died there, and the entire tribe of moon rabbits were annihilated. Not one remained. Azidaka also perished there in the calcimistic battle, but satisfied by eliminating the entire lightning of Indra and taking the lives of his heavenly generals, he alone managed to decrease our pantheon's overall strength by a huge margin. His voice was tragic. His face even changed a little. However, only one moon rabbit survived. He was relieved at these words. The woman left the moment she saw her lover die by the sharp fangs of the beast, failing to rescue him in the midst of the chaos. Crying tears of grief, she left and wandered around the world, hiding from one place to another. Shiva was satisfied with this if it was a good decision. Soon she noticed her pregnancy, and using all of her strength and power, she activated a forbidden spell that cost a part of her life that she had left. She stopped the development of the baby, hoping she would give birth when everything was calm and war was finally over. Years, decades even passed, and I found the woman. He confessed. I helped her and gave her a home. Since I was also quite confused after the war, seeing my friends fall one after another, and seeing the battlefields being painted with my comrades' blood, I didn't know how to react. And so I left and roamed the world until I coincidentally found her. However, because of the spells she cast on the baby, and the years that passed like that, her body became increasingly weaker, and the life of the baby was in danger. His tone worried. I took a liking to the woman. She was the only being that wasn't afraid of me due to my power, and for that I was grateful. He had a smile on his face. Her only wish was to give birth after the war finished, but things weren't what she thought. The pantheons were in a mess, and internal fights broke out. Even I needed to go back unless I wanted my pantheon to experience its demise, and so I left her on her own, hoping to end everything as fast as I could. He sadly said, the human world unexpectedly experienced a change after the Great War. He sighed, and humanity started to fight against each other. Each battle worse than the last, Shiva explained while looking at the moon. The Roman Empire constant greed for territory and riches, the fall of the mother civilizations all over the world, further weakening the other factions. The fall and rise of kingdoms and cities, the crusades of the Christians, the Huns' unstable thirst for blood, and Shiva kept recounting. Hundreds upon hundreds of wars, all because of religion, race, territory, belief, and so much more. He was angry. The god of destruction was angered. The entire world, thanks to us, was left in a mess. We couldn't help since we were the same as them. Shiva was feeling ashamed of himself. He took a breath and calmed his emotions while looking at the past. Then he inhaled and continued telling the story. After some time passed, the body of the woman became pale and weak, and I couldn't notice it on the time since I left her alone. He obviously felt regret. Her life was close to an end, he said, with a hurt look in his eyes. As a last resort, she begged me to save the baby, even if it meant her own death. His voice was serious. And so I did. Issei widened his eyes. He's surprised that he actually agreed with that. The predictor was heart-wrenching for me. The wails of the woman still echo inside of my head from time to time, he laminated. But it was successful. The baby lived, he smiled. An aura filled with satisfaction was present on him. And with her last strength, she named her baby and gifted her with the armor from her father and lightning of her mother. And soon after left this world, finally rejoining with her loved one. He had a sad smile on his face. I raised her as my own flesh and blood, and thanks to that, I love her even more than my own flesh and blood. He was smiling at this, but her life was not easy, being the last of her race, being my daughter. Even if only a name meant her life was never going to be simple. His mood changed once again, even a tinge of regret was seen in his eyes. His hands was against his face, and his eyes were looking straight at the lake. Not having her true father and mother affected her more than I can think. He had a grim look on his face. After discovering the truth, she was in despair. Her entire life was a lie. Her own parents turned out to be fake, and she was the last of the race that was bred for war. He was sad at his own words. It was too much for her, and it took a long time for my wife and me to make her understand what happened, and make her understand that we loved her, even if she's not our flesh and blood. He finished explaining while sighing rather heavily. It took a lot of us to make her understand that she was not alone, that we love and cherish her, that she is our daughter, and in the end we succeeded. He had a smile on his face and exhaled. After those words, silence regained, and in the garden no one talked. They just stared at the black lake with an incredible look in both of their faces. The silence seemed eternal, but they both knew what they needed. Shiva finally was calm and decided to break the silence. So, Issei, what do you think? Yae is one that has been through a lot, even before her birth. I believe you should understand her better than most. Shiva knew that he experienced something bad. After all, he saw the ritual. Issei kept his silence for some time. Seconds turned into minutes. Then he decided to talk. Shiva, I'll be honest, Yae is a great woman, and it's not because of being your daughter. In the brief hours we spent together, I can guarantee you that she's nice, smart, quite beautiful, and also goofy. She's easy to tease, and her reactions are splendid. Issei looked at the lake as well, a small smirk on his face. She's someone that's always fun to be around. She's not arrogant, rather quite humble, but she's someone that has suffered a lot, he told him. Her eyes give her out, especially if it's me who's looking at them. Issei had a melange in his voice. Those eyes are the ones of someone that discovered something horrible. And by what you told me, it is the truth, he sighed. However, she managed to stand up and continue walking. That is not something anyone can do. Even I almost died because of the horrible truth I was living in, he shrugged his shoulders. The reason I talked and decided to be normal around her is because of that. The moment I saw those eyes that were the very same as mine, she gained my respect, Issei confessed. Shiva was quiet, his face expressionless, but inside his mind, the character of the current Sekiro was quite to his liking. Behind that cold and sharp facade, there is warmth and kindness he had. One just needed to gain his approval, and they will see his true self willingly. The more I talked to her, the more I liked her. Damn, I mean, she's just similar to me. It's like I'm looking at a mirror. He was amazed by this. Maybe I would have turned out that way after the ritual if not for my aura. Maybe I could have been someone different instead of who I am right now. But who knows? Issei smirked at this and shrugged his shoulders. So, that's why, Drake. That is right now like a cold sharp blade. Talk to her due to the similarity you two had. And what similarity do you two share according to you? Shiva said, while looking at him, his voice sharpening a bit, deepening. Depending on his answer, everything will change. This was a test. It's not that I think she might have it. She does have it, Shiva. Issei told the god without fear. Shiva was staring right at him, waiting for an answer. Then, while looking at the night starry skies, he said, her will to live, even if her past haunted her, that is what we have in common. That took Shiva by surprise, but he didn't say a word. She has experienced in her life being left alone by her blood family. He stared at the moon. she discovered that her whole life was a lie. She was completely alone without anyone to help her. She suffered. Maybe not in the way I did, but this is not a competition. He turned his head and said while looking into Shiva's eyes. The will, resolve, and determination was obvious for Shiva to notice. Even the god of destruction agreed with his words. But at that moment, she had you and your wife. Even if you two were not her parents, he smiled. So you two tried and tried for quite some time to make her accept that she is a part of your family. Even if not by blood, you made her keep on moving, he said, while resting both of his hands on the grass and leaning back. In my case, I only had Drake, and even with him at my side, I made a lot of stupid shit. She might have experienced something pretty bad, but at least she had a father and a mother to back her up during those tough times. He smiled a bit. I didn't have the luxury. He was melodic. I was only with my best friend that couldn't physically stop me from doing something dumb, he said while looking at him. What happened to me was that I had my expectations, my dreams, and my soul heartfelt wish be crushed into pieces right in front of the ones I loved. His voice was heavy. And what's worse is that it wasn't only once, he confessed. The thing you most cherish and value in life can also become the worst poison that eats you from inside. His voice was hollow. Shiva kept looking at him. His eyes held a myriad of emotions, but he didn't say a thing. The trust I had was destroyed. Not a piece of it remains till this day. Believe me, Shiva. Trust takes a long time to form and seconds to break, and when it breaks, it leads to betrayal. His eyes were emotionless, and the worst part of betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. Issei accepted this once and for all. He knew that what he had will never come back. He was going around in circles. It was better if he let go of this. At the moment, Issei felt a weird feeling on his chest, as if weight was slowly being pushed off. What? He thought. He kept sensing this feeling. After some time, he realized what it was. He mentally sighed. Seemed that this talk is more for me than anyone else, he deduced. That this talk was helping him move on. Maybe this was Shiva's plan. Shiva looked at the dragon after he finished the explanation. They made eye contact and lasted for some brief seconds. Soon after, they broke it off and Shiva lifted the corner of his lips. You're certainly different from the past, so perceptive and wise beyond our years, Sekiru. Shiva looked at his hands and kept talking. I believe that's something normal, he dismissed his compliment. Shiva laughed at the response. So, Sekiru, in the end, what is your wish? He wanted to know all of his answer after all of this. Issei looked at him and then sighed. I want to be free. I want to protect the ones I love, and also I want to help anyone that has experienced the same as me, he answered. Shiva sounded happy. Then I'll leave Ye to you. Treat her well. He was serious. Issei widened his eyes at those words. Did he mean it? She should go out of her home and see the world. Nothing should come by just staying here. If it's with you, I'm sure that you will help and protect her, Shiva said again, cheering Issei's doubts. Issei was in shock. Did Shiva just give his daughter to him? Did he just agree to what he had been thinking since he saw her? Did he read him since the beginning? How did he discover that? I wondered, as part of my team? Not even Erika nor Fuki noticed. He was a bit frightened at this thought. You're too young to think that you can hide it from me, Sekiru. That gleam in your eyes was quite obvious for me not to notice, Shiva said. I don't blame you, nor am I angry at you. After all of this was to prove if you're worthy of her. Issei understood what he meant, but he felt that his words seemed to hint at something else. I don't blame you. His words kept going. Shiva, since you agreed to what I was thinking, then that's great. I indeed thought she was an excellent candidate for my own team, but I never thought you read me so well. He had a mocking smile on his face, probably aimed at himself. Shiva didn't answer. He only had a strained light inside his eyes. Issei knew that he wouldn't answer. He just smirked, placed both of his hands inside of his pockets, and turned around. While leaving, he said, I'll ask Ye for this personally. After all, I want her to agree to this herself. For now, I'll enjoy the talks we have, he smirked. Don't blame me when I take your daughter away, Shiva. This caused a bit of surprise in the eyes god. After that, Issei began walking off. He was calm and Shiva could notice that he was different from what he was in the past. Seeing him like that, Shiva decided to help on something. Just a few words. Shiva smirked a bit, then stood up. Seeing the Sekiru walking away, he said with a calm but powerful voice that made Issei stop in his tracks. Before you leave, young Sekiru, his voice filled with a serious feeling, Your lifespan. This caused Issei to tremble slightly, but he didn't turn around. He didn't want Shiva to look at his face, filled with shock and a bit of fear. This is ridiculous. Can he see through me like it's nothing? This is just terrifying, he thought. Then Shiva's voice broke from his thoughts. If you wish to find something to help you, then I recommend you go to the Human Alchemy Guild. They should have answers to the questions you have. He smiled mysteriously. Issei just glanced at him over his shoulder. How? He didn't understand how he figured it out. Your natural aura is weak, young dragon, he replied. So, of course, I would notice that you halved your lifespan. It's quite simple for someone like me. He smiled in a mysterious way. Issei decided to give up on trying to hide anything from him. It was just useless. Swallowing his pride, he decided to ask something where again. Where? This was the most important question until now. Shiva smiled and placed both of his hands behind him. He said a single word and said, Germany. This caught Issei by surprise. Why there? Are the headquarters there, or was it because of something else? Nevertheless, he decided to nod his head and thank him. I see. Thanks. He walked off from the garden, a bit too quick in his opinion. Seeing him like that caused Shiva to lightly laugh. After watching him cross the huge wooden door at the entrance of the garden, Shiva talked. What do you think? He looked at a nearby tree and smiled. His words landed on empty ears. Nothing was there, but after a few seconds he just crossed his arms and stared at the tree in question. Like he thought, something did happen. A magic dome with extremely complex symbols appeared from behind the tree. It's a shape that was different of many different magic circles stuck to one another. It had colors of a rainbow and seemed to be difficult to cast, even harder than constantly maintain. The dome of magic shattered into pieces and turned into particles of light that disappeared even before they touched the ground. A woman came from within it. She had a serious glint in her eyes but a happy smile over her face. Are you sure you didn't notice me, husband? Parvati asked while being cautious. Not even I did, wife. If I hadn't known beforehand that you were going to be here, I would have definitely not noticed you, he confessed. Great. Parvati smiled and said with happiness. It seemed that she wasn't tilted the goddess of power and divine strength for nothing. In her pantheon she was extremely feared and respected. So, your answer? He asked again. Oh, she placed a hand on her mouth because of the surprise. The scene caused Shiva to sigh. She always was like that. I like him very much, she said. I knew we weren't wrong. He's just good at hiding his true nature. She walked closer to her husband. True, Shiva agreed. And then she said sweetly, he's the one, definitely. Just need to play it a bit slowly and then... Her smile was that of a matchmaker. And yay? He asked. Oh, I spied on them when they were inside the library, and my, she smirked. We're definitely going somewhere. I see, he sighed. His wife came close to him and hugged his back. She knew what he was thinking. I know you're sad because she might leave, but it's needed. She needs to go outside and experience a lot of things. She needs to make friends and find someone to call her other half. And here, she won't be able to do it, she talked. She has suffered for a long time. This will help her, and if it's him at her side, then even better. She said those words last into his ear. Shiva was silent. They remained like that for some time until he sighed and grabbed his wife's hand. I know. I'll put my trust in both of them. Maybe something good will come of it, he agreed. Whew, you have no idea, husband. No idea, she thought, while hiding her smile. And that is where we're going to stop for now. Thank you guys so much for the support that's been going on. It's been absolutely amazing. And I didn't exactly cliffhanger you guys this time, but the next episode is 100% guaranteed to be the last. A lot of people keep asking me if I was going to continue this series, and here I am going to answer that question now. So, I've done a lot of thinking, and I would love to write more of it, but out of respect for the author and what he went through, as I read that he went through and stuff like that, I'm not sure if he's ever going to come back to the story, but if he ever does, I will continue to read it. But as for my answer, I don't think I'm going to continue to do this one. I would love to see the confrontation between Issei and Rias. I really, really need to see that and everybody's surprise and things like that. I hope the author comes back and continues the story. But for now, I think that I'm going to pass on writing this just out of respect for the author in general. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to. Maybe I'll put up a poll, which we all know that I'll probably win. But it feels like I'd be taking away his story, if you guys know what I'm saying. And I already gave him enough credit, all the way in the description below and things like that. Amazing writer, super detailed, obviously extremely intelligent. Once again, so yeah, my answer's final. I'll probably not be continuing this after the next episode, which is the finale. So, And that is what, 23 parts? What is that, like 15 hours or something like that? If you, a lot of you are expecting that to see in movie format, well, you're in for a surprise because you will be there for a while. Thank you so much for the support once again. If you want to become a limit breaker or a balance breaker, it's going to be in the premiere. The first link in the description below. As well, subscribe to my other channels. I have Hopowski and Fallen DxD. And without any further intrusion, Spartanic Arts DxD out. We'll share 1,000 likes.